We're here at FailFest 2014, and we're talking to a good number of speakers. Everybody's talking about the culture of embracing failure and learning from those mistakes and bringing that to successes. And we have with us a speaker, Shawn Schwegman, CEO of Gusto. Thank you so much for taking time and speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you were speaking to a good degree of a number of different challenges that you've come across.
Sure.
Before anything, can you give us a little bit of your history, where you've been with different companies?
Sure. So for got about 22 years of experience with startup companies, over a dozen startups. So some of them were companies like Overstock,
Right.
ChaCha, and the current company I'm with is Gusto. So a couple of grand slams along the way, a couple of failures, and you just keep trying and keep moving and shaking. But
I got to point out one grand slam. I mean, this
Sure.
rocked my world. You took Overstock from $3 million to an $800 million
Yep.
company in what period of time?
About 5 years.
In 5 years.
5 years.
Fantastic
Thank you.
return, obviously.
Thank you.
And you embraced a lot of digital marketing along the way. So you're kind of a hybrid here. You're a marketer, but as well as you're a CEO and a entrepreneur at heart, right?
Yep, that's right. I was CMO and CTO at Overstock for different points of that 5 years, but I think I went in as employee 20 or so, and about 5 years later we had almost 1,000 employees.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about failure.
Sure.
Because I think we're starting to hear now that there's an embrace of this learning tool, and I mean, it's a natural understanding of you can't be successful without having some failures behind you. And if you're that successful without that, then your bubble's going to burst eventually. Can you share with us some of the lessons you learned, or maybe a particular failure that you've come across and learned
Sure.
At a pivotal moment in your career?
Sure. I mean, I would say, well, first off, marketing in general is all about managing failure, right?
Right.
Not every campaign always works. As a matter of fact, it's more like, 6 or 8 out of 10 marketing campaigns that you try fail.
Right.
You have to identify that failure, cut the campaign, and really fail fast. You have to learn that it's going to fail, kill it, and pour your money into campaigns that do run. So from a marketing perspective, you deal with failure on a day-to-day basis. Even development is all about managing failure, right? I don't know any software program that's ever launched without bugs.
Exactly.
Every bug is some sort of failure that you have to then fix. So even in successful businesses, there's a sea of failure. The key is to identify it, be transparent and open about it, learn from it, and move on. And I've frequently told employees, like, if you're going to fail big. I'm not going to kick your ass for that, right? But if you repeat the same mistake over and over and over again, okay, now we've got a problem, right? But you learn from your failures.
Now you're talking about failing fast. Something that needs to be part of that failing fast process is the measurements, the ability to intake that at a very quick click.
Correct.
So in that respect, what are some of the processes, not so much software, pardon me, but some of the processes that you adopt on how to see a failure very quickly, to be able to course correct just that quickly?
So I'm not the traditional, from a marketing standpoint, I'll talk through that lens for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm not the traditional marketer that believes in spending big dollars on eyeballs and brand and impressions. I'm more of a transactional marketer, right, or a direct response marketer. So I never spend a penny of money unless we can track that click down to the sale level. So making sure that your measurement, that you can measure every single campaign. And in today's world, pretty much anything that you can do can be measured in some way. So you have to go into any marketing campaign saying, okay, if we spend this money, what is our goal and how are we going to measure it, and have that measurement in place from day one. The other thing I'd say is I start and even as a CEO, but for the last 14 years, from marketer, CTO, CMO, CEO, like any role that I've had, I take the first 30 minutes of my day and run the numbers. We have core metrics that we run every business by that are typically focused on sales or customer engagement. And I have a spreadsheet that I keep that tracks it daily, weekly, and monthly. And I spend about 30 minutes pouring through whatever analytics package, Google Analytics, et cetera, to grab those numbers and populate it on the spreadsheet. And a lot of people say, gosh, that's a a lot of time every day for you to do that, but it forces you to look at your metrics on a daily basis and
Absolutely.
course correct as you need it. And if you don't have that culture of sort of measurement and focus, it's difficult to know if you're doing well or not.
Well, you've got the feedback mechanisms right there. It's just a discipline to adopt. Now, I completely agree. The concept of the measurement and the technical nature is really not in parity with marketing concepts, or they haven't been for a very long time. So we're seeing this nexus, or this kind of juxtaposition of these two diametrically opposed environments, and we're certainly a great proponent of the marriage of marketing IT.
Right.
What challenges have you seen inside of marketing and dealing with marketing from that adoption of that type of raw understanding of the measurements, and what kind of changes inside of marketing thought? Because you're obviously a bit of a hybrid here, but you're dealing with a lot of marketers that you work with, right? They may or may not know that particular path. What kind of challenges have you experienced in that space?
Yeah, it's. I think there's sort of the brand creative marketer, and then there's the transactional sort of direct response analytical marketer, and I tend to favor the latter. When I was running Overstock, Patrick Byrne, our CEO, asked me to step in and be the VP of marketing, and I said, I'm not sure you want me to do that, because I'd probably fire like half the staff. And he said, that's exactly why I want you to do it. Get in there and change it around. And we had a team of 12. He made me VP of marketing, and that day I think I released 7 of the folks, mainly because the mentality of the group, there was a lot of people that said, I think and I feel that we should do these different things, which basically meant you have no idea and that should be tested, right? Anytime someone starts off saying I think or I feel, that means I don't know. That's a hypothesis and it should be tested. So I let go of 7 of the folks, pulled someone from accounting that was an analytical marketer, and then an MBA from Stanford who was focused on analytics, and really just rehired very analytical, an analytical mindset. And we basically put in place a rule. And this sounds really shitty to say, but we had a culture that had to be shifted towards measurement and testing. And so instead of I think it should be this way, and so let's do it this way. So the rule that we put in place was if you ever run a marketing campaign without testing something, you're fired.
Wow.
That was it. And I basically said, I don't care what you're testing. You're sending an email, split it, send 2 different emails and test a color, the subject line. I don't care what you're testing.
Right, but
just test something, right?
That's fantastic.
And it changed the culture of marketing very quick, literally overnight. We kind of got rid of some of the folks that were too ingrained into what they thought or what they felt, as opposed, and replaced that with a culture of testing and accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. What can you give as maybe final thoughts for an entrepreneur that's getting into the marketplace that obviously is maybe fearful of failure, but you've dealt with a number of different organizations and you see what can break a company and what can actually just accelerate a company? What would you give as a good thought to hold true as they're going through their career?
A good question. I mean, most companies fail because of a lack of focus, a lack of cash, or a lack of sort of the art of the pivot, right? I don't know how else to say it, but you have to recognize that something's not working and have the balls to change it, right?
Absolutely.
Or at least to try something new. And if you look at companies, there was a big list of companies I researched once that were like companies that started as one thing that now have nothing to do with that. Avon, right? Big company, Avon, huge makeup. They started selling books door to door. They don't do that anymore, right? Completely different business model.
And there was a pivot there. Yeah, absolutely.
Wrigley's started selling like baking soda or baking powder, right? And now they sell gum. Those two don't really go well together, I don't think, right? But there's a lot of companies and a lot of examples like that. 3M was a mining company, and now they sell paper and tape and so So you just don't when you kind of step back and look at it through that lens, all of those companies pivoted at one point in their life, and you can't be afraid to do that. So make sure the company has enough cash, and don't be afraid to go raise it. Because you should always raise cash when you don't need it. When you need it, you're a little too late.
Yeah, the game's already gone.
But I would also say test and measure. You have to make sure you're measuring everything that you can possibly measure, and then keep trying and testing and new things. And don't be afraid to fail. That failure is inevitable. It happens in every single business. You just have to fail quickly and pivot into something new.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the takeaway here is fail fast and be able to measure everything that you do. Shawn, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.